odds align, and Palace Pier is the winner of the Queen Anne. Lope Fernandez in second, Sir Busker.
Evening everyone, live from the Money Rider studio on my own tonight, as you may well see. Glenn will no doubt be piecing all our videos together, as we certainly cannot miss giving our opinions out ahead of the Royal Ascot meet next week. Short notice would have not been able to get together, all of us unfortunately, on that one, but we certainly are not going to miss this opportunity and have a go at see what we can do on the old Ascot meet this week. Now, Jamie is tasking us with 3 to 4 meets a day, races a day, sorry. The first day, we're going Queen Anne Stakes, Kingstands, St James's Palace, and as always with Jamie, has to throw his roughie in the race, the Ascot Stakes, 2 mile free. Right, start mine off, Queen Anne Stakes. I don't see any of us really differing in opinion on the winner. On this one, Baaeed is an absolute monster for Haggis and Crowley. 1 to 3 at the moment, I think, in the betting declarations when they're made. You can only see it probably going off a lot shorter, if not around the same price. You do have the 2 Godolphin pair, Master of Seas and Real World, but so far they've both, had a crack at this monster of a horse, and not really been able to lay too much of a twig to it. So it's difficult to see past. It's certainly not going to turn a lot in the way of profit, but that's why I'm going to try and give a forecast a go. I'm looking at Adari, the other Haggis horse in this. Again, another horse that has laid it to a lot of decent types so far leading up to this. My main thought process on this one is his Ascot form reads 5 races, 3 wins. Again, it's not probably the same calibre of horse that he's gone up against in all 5 of these races, but will definitely stand a great chance of being bang on in there. So for me, again, it's not groundbreaking, it's quite obvious, but if we're asking what the better horse is in this race and we're asking what wins, it's Baaeed for me, but I will do the Haggis forecast, Baaeed and Aldari on that one. Kingstands Stakes. Now, this for me, I thought was a bit of a tricky one to pick out a winner. Not got the knowledge of the likes of Jamie and Mark, shall we say, when it comes to this. But I thought for the Kingstands, I'm going to go for a royal win in King's Lynn. Currently 16 to 1. Andrew Baldwin, David Probert more than likely to be riding again. Now, has won a couple of Group 2 races leading up to this. Again, it's another step up for the horse. But that's the whole purpose of Ascot. That's the whole purpose of the races leading up to these ones. You develop into what is Group 1 winning standards. Again, won the Temple Stakes last month, beating Twilight Calls, I believe. Henry Candy's horse, who's also listed in that race. So there is form. Winter Power also in that race, back in the field. Again, I think quite a large price in this race as well, looking into the 30s, definitely double figures still. It's going to be a big shout. There are a lot in this, especially when it's a 5 furlong sprint. He tends to ride out the back and almost explode a little bit late, which is obviously going to be dangerous in a 5 furlong sprint when you have the likes of Wesley Ward brings his types over, who are known for bursting out the gate. If they get away, they're very hard to reel in. Personally, at a price 16 to 1, the form is there. Again, a tricky race to call. The decks have to be made. I do see King's Lynn going that route, and for me at 16 to 1, I think it'd be very difficult not to have a dabble on that one. So for me, King's Lynn in the Kingstands Stakes. Right, St James's Palace Stakes. Again, it's very Godolphin heavy, as a lot of them are. But you can't knock the form in the Guineas. 2,000 Guineas winner Coroebus, or Coroebus, however that's pronounced. Appleby will have a strong hold in this. Obviously, you've got Native Trail, who was going to go off favourite, I'd imagine, for this race if he'd put in a better show in the Guineas. Finishing second to stablemate, but ahead of Luxembourg, who, obviously we know has had issues since then, so won't be going. But Coroebus, the way was able to pull out wide, especially at Newmarket when they hit that dip, it can be very difficult. You know, there's more ground you're covering. But then just went, and when the button was pushed, there was no catching James Doyle on that horse. He asked, and the horse delivered effectively. I see that being I don't see any reason as to why the form will be reversed. I wouldn't be surprised if the form was reversed. I just don't see it happening in this one. Again, it's not very creative, it's not imaginative, but the best horse in the race is what we're being asked to pick. The winner, that is what I see, is Coroebus. What I do like as well is the eye catcher in the Guineas, which was Roger Varian trained Eydon, Eydon. Went off at 33s, stayed on like an absolute train, and afterwards David Egan actually mentioned that the horse did struggle when hitting the dip. Obviously, as you can see at Newmarket, when they have that dip before they kick on for the last, I think it's furlong or so, I'm not too sure the actual distance. But even that hitting that dip managed to find enough form to keep up and close in on the likes of Luxembourg, Native Trail and Coroebus. Currently at the moment, I think it's around about the 14 to 1, 16 to 1 mark. Again, a nice price for what will be, hopefully, a competitive horse. But for me, Coroebus will take all the beating again for the Godolphin team. Now, the ruffian, Jamie's Brucey bonus, Ascot Stakes, 2 mile free. Not much stood out to me in this, and I wouldn't have liked to pin too much on any of the horses that were at the top of the betting. I didn't know too much on those guys. What I have done is I've put my jump racing hat on, and if he goes, I'm going to give Pushima, for the Skeltons another stab. Now, we all know they didn't have as a yard what they would have liked of the most productive of seasons on the jump runs, including Pushima, who offered a lot more, didn't deliver as much in the way of performances for a lot of the season. A couple of pulled ups, second to Sporting John, I think, at some point. I'm hoping that after a bit of a break, hasn't run for a while, maybe a spin around on a flat track with no obstacles and nothing like that, in a way we know the stamina will stay. We know that jumps trainers like to put a lot of their horses into these sort of ones. They're known stayers, it's what their ability is. So going off what I've seen, what I know is going to the racing, or what hopefully will go to that race, Pushima for me for the Skeltons. Yes, I've gone for a jumps horse in the flat racing. I'm that desperate for it. But I'm sticking to my guns. That's what's there. And at 14 to 1 again is a nice price. The declarations will tell over the next 3-4 days. All these fields will get thinned out and we'll have a clearer indication. But for me, Jamie's Brucey bonus race, I'm going to go Pushima for the Skeltons and keep with jump racing. But anyway, that's day 1 done for me. I'm sure we will get day 2 underway very shortly, and I'll see you all then. Have a great evening. Bye.
Hello and welcome to the Money Rider Racing team doing the selections. Like Sean said, that we unfortunately cannot be together because of the tight schedule, and also there's thick and fast racing and racing festivals. So unfortunately we won't be together in the film studio, but we're doing a few obviously selections from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday for the Royal Ascot, and we're just mashing it all up and putting it in onto a video YouTube, so you can have a look and see what you think. You don't have to go with us. It's entirely just opinions and just a bit of fun. So on Tuesday, the Royal Ascot, 2:30, Queen Stakes, Group 1, a 1 mile. I think Baaeed is going to be a tough horse to beat. He was an absolute monster, monster of a horse. He's a winner at Ascot, last year's Royal Ascot, winning in the Queen Elizabeth II Stakes, winning by a neck against Palace Pier on Good the Soft. Palace Pier now is retired and in the breeding sheds and producing really nice 2-year-olds. And then Baaeed reappeared and was a very impressive winner in the Lockinge Stakes at Newbury, winning by 3 1/4 lengths. So he'd be very hard to beat, I feel. It was very impressive watching that race. He beat the likes of Subuska, Chindit and Alcohol Free, and they're no mugs. I'm hoping Subuska will turn up, and Alcohol Free and Chindit and Mother Earth, if possible, to try and to boost the field up, because I reckon it's going to be a small field. So for me, for a win bet, is Baaeed. Obviously, it's going to be a very short price. 1-3 favourite for Sky Bet. I'm not sure what for the odds are, but my selection for an each way selection in the Queenstands Stakes is Alcohol Free, which is trained by Andrew Balding. So for me, Baaeed for a win, ridden by Jim Crowley and trained by William Haggis. Now the next bet, the next race is the Kingstands Stakes, Group 1, 5 furlongs, and you cannot dismiss a American trainer, and that American trainer, you cannot dismiss him, is Wesley Ward. He's absolutely fantastic, bringing his horses over here in the UK, especially in the Royal Ascot, and just literally winning really good Group 1 races and bringing very good horses, which they absolutely ping out the gates. They've been trained very well, getting out the stalls fast and quick, and first to out of the stalls. So my next my selection is Golden Powell, who has run in the Royal Ascot before, and that was in the Norfolk Stakes, where he got beat by a neck in 2020 by the Learjet. Andrea Atzini was riding at that time, got beaten by a neck, but he ran very well in that particular race. Even though he was a 3-year-old, now he's a 4-year-old. He's I'll tell you what, he has now become a big, imposing horse. He's filled out, he's strengthened up, he's a big horse. He's got a real strong back end for a sprinter that you really what you need. So for me, he was very impressive last time in the Kingland 5 furlong race. He won by 3 1/4 lengths, and the Learjet that beat him in the Norfolk got absolutely beaten in the Kingland last time this year, finishing 5th. So you can tell that the Golden Powell has really improved from 3 to 4, and the jockey for Wesley Ward will be Alride Ortiz Jr. He'll be riding all the horses for Wesley Ward for Royal Ascot, which I've just been notified, which is great for the sport to see another top American jockey coming to the UK and and ride a really top class racetrack. And then my third race is the St James Palace Stakes, Group 1, 7 furlongs and a very important 213 yards. And looking in the field, I like Modern Games, trained by Charlie Appleby. Not sure who's going to be riding him. He's got a very good record behind him in the past 3 runs, which is he's run at Paris Longchamp, at Newmarket and Doncaster on decent, good the soft ground. His recent defeat was at Enchanté, but that was a 1 mile 2 furlong, and I think that was a bit too far for him. So dropping down in trip is is a positive and a plus for him. So Sky Bet are showing 12 to 1 each way in the St James Palace Stakes, and that's my selection, Modern Games. My last selection is the Ascot Stakes, handicap class 2, 2 miles, 3 furlongs, and the important 210 yards. And looking through the field, I looked at the Nate the Great, trained by Andrew Balding. Even though he has ran in a small field last year in the Queen Alexandra Stakes, but 9 runners at the time, finishing 4th. But I'm sure he can improve from that. He has won quite a lot of races 2 miles, and he has run 2 miles 4. But I think this particular race, he's got the experience at Ascot. Obviously, he's been fourth place out of 9 in the Queen Alexandra Stakes. So for me, an each way selection at 10 to 1 with Sky Bet, and that is the Nate the Great, trained by Andrew Balding.
Hi, it's Glenn from Money Rider. It's my turn to give him selections for Royal Ascot Day 1. I think the first race of Queen Anne should be a foregone conclusion, really, shouldn't it? Baaeed should make it 8 from 8. He had no problem dispatching everybody in the Lockinge. He won that well, so I can't really see any difference here. So it's a bit short, sharp and to the point, but you know, you can't beat around the bush. The only thing I will say is, in interest of fun, like Sean, I'll have a little stab at the forecast and say, should he go, I think Real World will chase him down again, just like we saw in the Lockinge. So I'd say a forecast 1-2 of Baaeed and Real World in the Blue Silks. Moving on then to the Kingstand. Again, as the lads have already mentioned before me, Wesley Ward never shies away from an Ascot challenge, does he? He's always willing to bring his runners over, always willing to bring his staff over, his jockeys over, and he certainly knows how to win a sprint race, as we all know. Golden Powell is a favourite, so you can see why. Hard to argue with Jamie and why he's gone for Golden Powell. I've had a little look at the runners. There's obviously quite a big field on some websites. They don't appear on all the betting sites. Aidan O'Brien does have an interesting runner on ATR at 40 to 1. He's on that the races, but then he isn't on the betting sites. But 40 to 1, it's a massive price for the horse that's finished in the top 3 in his last 8 furlong races. Won his last race by about 7 lengths at Navan, I believe, by hands and heels under Ryan Moore. If he's in that race, I guess Ryan will probably pick up the ride again. So a huge price, 40 to 1. If he does go, could outrun their odds quite considerably. So that'll be a bit of a punt in that race for me. Moving on to the St James Palace Stakes, you can see why Coroebus is the favourite. Nipped Native Trail at the line in the 2000 Guineas, so you would expect another bold run from him. James Doyle will probably pick up the ride. On that note, I did originally think Native Trail might reverse the form because it was entered in that race, does appear on at the races, but again, looking at some of the betting sites, isn't on Sky Bet, isn't on Coral, so probably isn't going to go. But we just don't know at this stage. It's still a bit early, as the boys have pointed out. So erring on the side of caution, I suppose, if you want for a better word, my Prospero for William Haggis appears to be the second favourite in that race. I think about 5 to 1, I think. Has won his last 2 8 furlongs, out of Sear Stars, who is prolific over the 1 mile, 1 mile 4. So could be Coroebus' closest challenger. Hasn't had as many runs as Coroebus, but could be the one to put it up to Coroebus in this race. So St James Palace Stakes, I'll have a stab and say my Prospero could nick this one. And then finally moving on to the Ascot Stakes. There's a lot of these, or some of these certainly have got an entry in the Newcastle Northumberland Plate handicap later on in the month. As Sean said, the jumps trainers do seem to be quite good at plundering these sort of staying flat races. Obviously, after all, it is more of the area of the jump racing, the longer distances. So I can see why Sean might take a stab at Proxima. I haven't. I've gone for Charlie Appleby's Bandonelli at 12 to 1. as a 50% strike rate in its races, seems to have improved every time when stepping up in trip, and has won 3 times at the 1 mile 6, 1 mile 7 distance. So I'm hopeful the extra little bit of distance, which I believe is about 2 mile 3, shouldn't make a massive difference, and hopefully, you know, still within the strike zone. So at 12 to 1, I'll have a little stab at Bandinelli, stepping up a little bit further in trip again, and taking that one as well. So there's mine, and hopefully we'll get some selections from Mark. Mark's a bit busy at the minute with family life and personal bits and pieces and work and whatnot, so Mark might not have time to get us some selections across. If he doesn't, then Mark said he'll try and get us a few selections nearer the date. Hopefully we can get them tweeted up for you.
Races towards the line, and Palace Pier is the winner of the Queen Anne. Lope Fernandez in second, Sir Busco.